CD Projekt Red may have sold a ton of copies of Cyberpunk 2077, but it hasn't been an outstanding success like a lot of people thought that it was going to be, and it hasn't been a smooth ride at all whatsoever for CD Projekt Red executives or even developers. CD Projekt Red is looking down the barrel at 4 potential lawsuits, over 70% of their PC player base being gone, which is partially due to it being a single-player game and it having no multiplayer. Never mind the console versions of the game that ran like absolute garbage, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in refunds of the game. And now, the icing on the cake for CDPR is that the Polish Office of Consumer Protections is setting their sights on the company, saying that they need to get their shit together or else they could be fined up to 10% of their total income from last year. Now, this is a post or an archive of a post from the official Cyberpunk 2077 subreddit. Another bad news for CDPR, Polish Office of Competition and Consumer Protections, the UOKIK, will monitor the progress of work on patches, and if CDPR fails to deliver them, they may be punished with a fine of up to 10% of their income in the previous year. The troubles with the premiere of Cyberpunk 2077 just don't end. As it turns out, the game's premiere even interested the UOKIK. While in the case of the PC versions, the rating for Cyberpunk 2077 are good or even very good, despite visible errors, the console versions proved to be very disappointing. For some people, it was even unplayable, so there were a lot of players asking for returns, and even Sony decided to remove the game from the PlayStation storefront. Additionally, due to the problems with the game, CD Projekt Red stock price falls, which resulted in class actions against the company. Now the UOKIK is also interested in Cyberpunk's problems. Now, I was someone who purchased the game multiple times. I did purchase it on PC, and I also purchased it on the Xbox One for my Xbox Series X that I got. And there are definitely a lot of differences in the games. The PC version definitely is playable most of the time. Unfortunately, the Xbox version of the game just had so many bugs and glitches and problems, and I understand that they've patched the game over the past month since it's been out, which is great. I'm glad that they've put in a ton of work and effort into it, because as a consumer, you want to see a company doing that. You don't want to see a company just abandoning their games as soon as they're, put out like a cash grab. But at the same time, the state that the console releases came out in were just very unacceptable in my opinion, especially for a AAA title. It says, I can't pronounce that, unfortunately. That was the first group to inform about it, Dzenki Gatsaprana. I have no clue if I'm saying that right. I tried, though. A for freaking effort was the first to inform about it. The spokesperson of the UOKIK explained the scope of control. As she stated, it is primarily a matter of checking the progress of work on the promised patches, which should make the console versions of the game playable. We ask that the entrepreneur to explain the problems with the game and actions taken by him. We will check how the producer is working on making corrections or solving difficulties that make it impossible to play on consoles. Also keep in mind that this is translated, but also how he intends to act towards people who have made complaints and are dissatisfied with the purchase due to the lack of possibility to play the game on their equipment, despite previous assurances of the producer. Now, a big question here is, are they only looking at CD Projekt Red, or are they looking at CD Projekt SA, who also owns the PC storefront Good Old Games, or GOG? That could make a huge difference here, because that is a ton of more money. I mean, if they are including GOG as well, that could be seriously damaging to the company. I could only find a little bit of information because the original article was translated, but I couldn't find anywhere where it's specified if it is CD Projekt Red or if it is CD Projekt SA. Now, at this point, it is difficult to conclude whether or not CD Projekt Red will even be punished, and I want to point out here that we're not just talking about Cyberpunk sales. We're also talking about sales from The Witcher that were sparked over the TV show release, and also game sales from people who just wanted to support CDPR and who were excited to play Cyberpunk. We're not even just talking about the millions of dollars that they made off of Cyberpunk, we're also talking about all of that other money that they made leading up to its release, besides, of course, pre-orders. We're talking about a ton of money. CD Projekt Red is an extremely successful company in the industry. They make a shit ton of money every year. So it says the decision in this case will depend on what explanations the representatives of the Office of Competition and Consumer Protection will hear in these cases. The company will certainly not underestimate this, as the UOKIK president's decision may result in a fine of up to 10% of their annual revenue. Again, this isn't, a solid 10%. It could be 8% or 2% or 5% or none. They might not even get fined for this. They might not find anything with the situation, but it's the potential that they could also be facing this on top of them losing tons of money in pre-orders and also having just a lot of people who are very upset with them. It says we will probably hear more about this case sooner rather than later. Let us remind you that despite a lot of confusion and problems, the sale of Cyberpunk is performing very well. After 10 days from the release, the game has found 13 million buyers. Now the result is probably much higher. We haven't heard recent, numbers for Cyberpunk, and I don't know if we're going to anytime soon. They did kind of release those beginning numbers to tell everyone they were extremely happy with their numbers and sales. Even though the sales were actually projected to be higher than those numbers, I have no clue what their projected numbers were going to be, but they did say that the 13 million copies sold was actually lower than they expected it to be. Now let's just go to a couple of the comments. Someone says 10% fine on their 2020 income with millions and millions of copies sold sounds like something that should scare the living daylights out of them. Someone else said especially as their stock tanked and they're also looking at possible litigations. But seriously, they deserve all of it. They fucked millions of people over, and someone else said, yep, let this be a warning to other game publishers. Someone else said, LOL, you get that they're only doing this because Poland provides tax credits and loans, right? Another person said, that's how I look at it too. I don't believe they will fix it into the game they promised anyway. Yeah, even if the patch and the bugs make it playable in base consoles, the game itself lacks various features. Now, I know that people are really upset about the whole situation, but I personally don't want to see CD Projekt Red fail. I want them to fix Cyberpunk, and I want them to make it a great, spectacular, amazing fucking game with no problems at all. And I want them to be able to create the next Witcher game and more Cyberpunk titles. I want them to stay a successful company. I've seen so many people want them to fail, and that's definitely not how I feel. I was someone who was disappointed with the state it launched on console, and yeah, the PC version also did have quite a few problems, but at the same time, I do think that they deserve criticism just like every other company, but attacking developers over it isn't gonna fix it, and hoping that the company fails isn't going to help the situation at all whatsoever. Now, again, this isn't confirmed to be happening. The UOKIK might look at this situation and go, who cares? We really don't care. It's fine. Keep doing what you're doing. But they could also receive a very hefty fine over Cyberpunk 2077. If we hear any updates, I will make sure to let you all know. So make sure to follow me on social media, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos, but that's all that I really had to talk about in this one. Make sure to give it a like if you enjoyed it and a dislike if you didn't, and I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.